we good? Are we live? Yeah. Uh, yes, I am, I think. As far as I can tell, yes. All right. Hi. Happy Wednesday. Um, let's get back to the book. Chapter 12. Wait, no. Chapter 8. Of the intimate love of Jesus. And again, this is about imitating Christ. So we're getting to the good stuff. We're not even halfway through the book. We're getting to the good stuff. Things where, you know, where we talk about the love, not just the fire and brimstone, but the love, the good part. When Jesus is present, all is well, and nothing seemeth hard. But when Jesus is not present, everything is hard. When Jesus speaketh not within, our comfort is nothing worth. But if Jesus speaketh but a single word, great is the comfort we experience. Did not Mary Magdalene rise up quickly from the place where she wept, when Martha said to her, The Master is come and calleth for thee? Happy hour when Jesus calleth thee from tears to the joy of the Spirit. How dry and hard art thou without Jesus? How senseless and vain if thou desirest aught beyond Jesus? It is not this greater loss than if thou shouldst lose the whole world. What can the world profit thee without Jesus? To be without Jesus is the nethermost hell, and to be with Jesus is sweet paradise. If Jesus were with thee, no enemy could hurt thee. He who findeth Jesus findeth a good treasure, yea, good above all good. And he who loseth Jesus loseth exceeding much, yea, more than the whole world. Most poor is he who liveth without Jesus, and most rich is he who is much with Jesus. It is great skill to know how to live with Jesus, and to know how to hold Jesus in great wisdom. Be thou humble and peaceable, and Jesus shall be with thee. Be godly and quiet, and Jesus will remain with thee. Thou canst quickly drive away Jesus and lose his favor if thou wilt turn away to the outer things. And if thou hast put him to flight and lost him, to whom wilt thou flee? And whom then wilt thou seek for a friend? Without a friend thou canst not live long. And if Jesus be not thy friend above all, thou shalt be very sad and desolate. Madly therefore dost thou, if thou trusteth or findeth joy in any other. It is preferable to have the whole world against thee than Jesus offended with thee. That's I was just looking through Facebook, and after staying off of X for 2 weeks, over 2 weeks now, I I don't know, it almost hurts to get on Facebook and see how people write and what they find important. And not that I'm not above it, and I even comment on Facebook stuff, but just, and who am I to judge? I'm not judging anybody. I used to be just big of Facebooker, but what if everyone on Facebook was like, "Hey, what's one thing that you did?" And maybe if you follow the right accounts, this is what you get. And in that case, social media is amazing. Like, how did you do better today? How did you do better today? Who is God and what is he about? Like, imagine if that was what Facebook was full of. Just people debating God, talking about God. Because if you have enough voices, you have enough debate, a lot of times you can kind of get close to what you think the truth might be, even without, maybe you don't even need leadership. This country was founded on the idea that institutions stay out of people's lives to the degree that God could be a part of their lives. That's why the whole country was devoted. We're the only nation, at least when we were devoted to God, that is devoted to God. The Constitution is devoted to God. Now, is that why we've been so successful in the past 250 years? I don't know. But you got to wonder. And now we have institutions, not just the government, but businesses, corporations that just drive our ever. Number one, we're just so well taken care of. What do you need? What do you need? And in a way, it's like a circle, right? You have nothing, and you're surviving. Say it's 150 years ago, and you feel blessed that you get water in the morning. You need God. Well, now we're to the point where water comes up out of the ground. We get to flavor our water. We get to put CO2 in our water, make it fun. We have everything. And like I'm saying, you can get on Facebook and you can see that the one thing we are lacking, and everybody's still lacking, everybody can still feel it. The whole world can feel it right now. We're hungry. We're no longer hungry for food. We got that out the wazoo, at least right now. Is it real food? That's a whole nother question here in America. But now we're hungry for God, I think. And I'm not a preacher. I'm definitely not a priest. But there's something missing. There's something hurting. And if you think it's all about politics, that everything's about politics, I'll tell you right now that they could find they could release the Epstein files, they could punish these people, and we're still going to have a hole. We're still going to be missing something. It's not going to solve it. We could meet every socialist need or every socialist demand and live under that, and we'd be missing something. Definitely missing something. But at the same time, we could have exactly what the founding fathers intended, and we could have this just immense, beautiful liberty, and we'd still be missing something. Politics isn't going to solve it. Technology isn't going to solve it. I think we really do. We got to look inward. I think. And we have to do it together. And we need to be talking about it. We need to be talking about God. We just need to be talking about God. What does he want? What does he demand? Because the further we get away from that, number one, the more likely we are to forget that we have souls that are very special. Because the robots are coming. They are coming, man. And the AI is, I mean, these robots are going to be able to jive. They're gonna look like us. They're gonna have skin like us. They're going to be able to pretend to be us. But all the while, it's still going to be circuitry, and it's still going to be, you know, infinitely more intelligent than us, even if it's acting like a blonde bimbo. And that's gonna be its own challenge. On Facebook, there was a thing that said, if you're in your 40s and you didn't have kids, do you regret it? Please share. And people got on there. They're like, hell no, I don't regret it. I get to get up in the morning when I want. I can leave town at any time. And then there's guys like posting pictures with like 6 cats on them. Literally, I'm not making this up. I'm not being dramatic. There was a guy that posted a picture laying down with 6 cats laying on him. And who am I? Who is anyone to say that they're wrong? A lot of these people were like, I've known since I was a little girl, since I was a kid, that I didn't want children when I got older. Well, that's what America's all about. You don't have to. You get that choice. And you can only be happy for them that they've found their place and that they're willing to talk about it out loud. And at the same time, should those of us that have a lot of kids, should we be bragging about it? No. You should be happy. You should feel blessed. But that's the kind of conversation I see is tell me your identity. Self-actuation type stuff. Tell me who you are and why you chose to be who you are. And we get wrapped up in that. We get wrapped up in that. We get wrapped up in our labels, our identities, what makes us feel like an individual, and especially on social media where everyone's fighting for attention, especially if you're if you're in a monetized account. That's what it's all about. And we're all trying to define ourselves and one another. And so to a degree, it's kind of bait, right? Hey, you folks that decided to live this way, tell me about you. And then you get people like me that decided to live the complete other direction. Oh, let me see what these people say. And I'm not envious by any means. I mean, I'm a little envious about the idea of sleeping in without like someone in your face asking about, can I play video games? Can I get on the tablet? You know, where's breakfast? But regardless, we're all on there talking about ourselves. And we're hungry. And you can go out into the world. It doesn't have to be on social media. You can be the most social person on earth, and you can still feel lonely and hungry. And I think that's where God plays in, especially if you're Christian. It's that personal relationship with Jesus. I don't know. Why even listen to what I have to say? Who am I? I do like this book, though. I like this book, and I'm not very good at following it either. Last night I got, in a fight with the wife. She's going through a lot. And was I selfless in how I dealt with all the things she's going through? No. Even though I'm reading this every day. But I do know that a couple years ago, I really wasn't worried about this stuff very much. I was far more worried about money, things, being cool. And since I have tried to say, hey, maybe that's not the end all be all. Maybe I will never attain that perfect happiness here on this earthly plane. Suddenly I'm a little content. Not there, and I'll never be there. But peace is worth a lot. Peace is worth a lot. Therefore, of all that are dear to thee, let Jesus be specially loved. It's important. Let all be loved for Jesus' sake, but Jesus for his own sake. Jesus Christ alone is to be specially loved, for he alone is found good and faithful above all friends. For his sake and in him, let both enemies and friends be dear to thee, and pray for them all, that they may all know and love him. Never desire to be specially praised or loved, because this belongeth to God alone, who hath none like unto himself. Nor wish thou that his any one set his heart on thee, nor do thou give thyself up to the love of any, but let Jesus be in thee and in every good man. Be pure and free within thyself, and be not entangled by any great thing, created thing. Thou oughtest to bring a bare and clean heart to God, if thou desirest to be ready to see how gracious the Lord is. And in truth, unless thou be prevented and drawn on by his grace, thou wilt not attain to this, that having cast out and dismissed all else, thou alone art united to God. For when the grace of God cometh to a man, then he becometh able to do all things. And when it departeth, then he will be poor and weak and given up unto troubles. In these thou art not to be cast down, nor to despair, but to rest with calm mind on the will of God, and to bear all things which come upon thee unto the praise of Jesus Christ. For after winter cometh summer, after night returneth day, after the tempest a great calm. Tempest, storm, great calm. And you know, you can go back to the other chapters and realize that he's not talking about, oh, everything falls into place for you. Although it might, you know, God has a different plan for everybody, I think. But when you have Jesus, you have something to turn to every time something does go wrong. And he reminds you that he's there and that everything is just finite. To what degree is it like, oh, you feel Jesus's love and warmth in your heart? I don't know. I don't know. I think I feel it, but then I don't really know. And that's where the faith comes in. I think humans, I think we desire to do things. We're better at doing things for other people or for an ideal than we are for ourselves at times. And it's not a selfless thing. It's just a natural, like evolved part of the human condition. And having Christ come down and say the things he said with this message of love, of just pure love, to the degree that God loves us so much that he watched his own son be sacrificed. I think if you can internalize that and just see the majesty of it all, like just how big it is, how big it is, you can kind of overcome anything. It's that reminder that if your heart's in the right place, you can fight the good fight, and you'll have backup, and it'll come to you in ways that you never could have imagined. Chapter 9, of the lack of all comfort. It is no hard thing to despise human comfort when divine is present. It is a great thing, yea, very great, to be able to bear the loss both of human and divine comfort, and for the love of God willingly to bear exile of heart, and in not to seek oneself, nor to look to one's own merit. What great matter is it if thou be cheerful of heart and devout when favor cometh to thee? So, everything's working out for you, and you're like, oh, I love Jesus. Yeah, I bet you do. Oh yeah, God does love you. You're very fortunate. But can you get through trials? Can you lose someone important in your life and still smile and say, you know what? I got Jesus. I am so blessed. It's tougher. That is an hour wherein all rejoice. Pleasantly enough doth he ride whom the grace of God carrieth. And what marvel if he feeleth no burden who is carried by the Almighty and is led onward by the guide from on high? It's not a big deal, right? We are willing to accept anything for comfort, and it is difficult for a man to be freed from himself. The holy martyr Lawrence overcame the love of the world and even of his priestly master because he despised everything in the world which seemed to be pleasant. And for the love of Christ he calmly suffered even God's chief priest, Sixtus, whom he dearly loved, to be taken from him. Thus, by the love of the Creator, he overcame the love of man, and instead of human comfort, he chose rather God's good pleasure. So also learn thou to resign any near and beloved friend for the love of God, nor take it amiss when thou hast been deserted by a friend, knowing that we all must be parted from one another at last. It's interesting to think about how friendship, we're all attached to technology. It's interesting to think about how much it meant back then to have to have someone leave your life. Now we're like a nomadic culture here in the United States, where people move from town to town for like 7 years, and that's how I grew up. That's how I grew up. In I've lived in I think 7 or 8 different states now, but just growing up, I moved around, got used to it, almost like an army brat. But my dad wasn't in the army. Now we complain about people, and then we use social media and entertainment to escape the real world. Back then, the worry was the real world, and you know again, we're in a funny time, we're in a funny moment. But I have a feeling the answers that they needed back in the 1400s to what was going on. And Kempis is very upset with society in the 1400s. He thinks it's just gone to shit, you know. And and now we have people saying the same things, but it's just a completely different type of disconnect. Where back then it was like, oh, your friend, you lost a friend, you lost somebody very important to you, but you'll get through this. And now it's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't want to say anything more negative. I'm tired of being negative. I just think that this book is great, and I'll be quiet and keep reading it. Mightily and long must a man strive within himself before he can learn altogether to overcome himself and to draw his whole affection toward God. When a man resteth upon himself, he easily slippeth away unto human comforts. But a true lover of Christ and a diligent seeker after virtue falleth not back upon those comforts, nor seeketh such sweetness as may be tasted and handled, but desireth rather hard exercises and to undertake severe labors for Christ. When therefore spiritual comfort is given by God, receive it with giving of thanks, and know that it is a gift of God, not thy desert. Be not lifted up, rejoice not overmuch, nor foolishly presume, but rather be more humble for the gift, more wary and more careful in all thy doings. For that hour will pass away, and temptation will follow. When comfort is taken from thee, do not straightway despair, but wait for the heavenly visitation with humility and patience. For God is able to give thee back greater favor and consolation. This is not new nor strange to those who have made trial of the way of God. For with the great saints and the ancient prophets there was often this manner of change. Wherefore one said, when the favor of God was present with him, I said in my prosperity that I shall never be moved. But he goeth on to say what he felt within him when the favor departed. Thou didst turn thy face from me, and I was troubled. In spite whereof he is no wise despaireth, but the more instantly entreateth God, and said, unto thee, O Lord, will I cry, and will pray unto my God. And then he receiveth the fruit of his prayer, and testifieth how he hath been heard, saying, the Lord heard me, and had mercy upon me. The Lord was my helper. But wherein? Thou hast turned my heaviness into joy. Thou hast put off my sackcloth, and girded me with gladness. If it was thus with the great saints, we who are poor and needy ought not to despair if we are sometimes in the warmth and sometimes in the cold, for the Spirit cometh and goeth according to the good pleasure of his will. Wherefore holy Job saith, thou dost visit him in the morning, and suddenly thou dost prove him. Prove him, I think, means, okay, Job, you're a believer, but boy, have I got some things in store for you. We're going to see if you stick to it. And that isn't that an interesting way to look at life, and a lot of biblical, men, and just going back. Now we would say, well, these people saw their lives as a movie or something, but they saw their lives as a story, and I don't know if they actually saw it that way, but people used to be so connected to God that every moment, everything that happened in their life was a reflection of what was going on between them and God in that moment. I think it's easy. It's kind of like going to church on Sunday, and suddenly then you're going to think about God. Or you say your prayers in the morning or before bed, or just here and there you say a prayer. But people used to be. I mean, it used to be so much of their thought processes. Now maybe they were surviving. Life was about survival back then. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm a moron. But it does strike me. Whereupon then can I hope, or wherein may I trust, save only in the great mercy of God, and the hope of heavenly grace? For whether good men are with me, godly brethren, or faithful friends, whether holy books or beautiful discourses, whether sweet hymns and songs, all these help but little, and have but little savor when I am deserted by God's favor and left to mine own poverty. There is no better remedy then than patience and denial of self, and then abiding in the will of God. I have never found any man so religious and godly, but that he felt sometimes a withdrawal of the divine favor and lack of fervor. No saint was ever so filled with rapture, so enlightened, but that sooner or later he was tempted. For he is not worthy of the great vision of God, who for God's sake hath not been exercised by some temptation. For temptation is wont to go before as a sign of the comfort which shall follow, and heavenly comfort is promised to those who are proved by temptation. As it is written, to him that overcometh I will give to eat of the tree of life. Divine comfort is given that a man may be stronger to bear adversities, and temptation followeth, lest he be lifted up because of the benefit. The devil sleepeth not, thy flesh is not yet dead. Therefore, cease thou not to make thyself ready unto the battle. For the enemies stand on thy right hand and on thy left, and they are never at rest. Yeah, that temptation's always out there. It's always going to be out there, forever and ever. It's just life is not easy. God threw us into one big test, one giant test. The good news, you overcome the temptation. There's peace on the other side. True peace, true happiness. And right now it feels as though we're living in a society where you give in to the temptation, and that's the happiness. Kempis says, no. The happiness is that relationship with God that you strengthen when you overcome these temptations, when you can fight past them. And it is a fight. It's a battle. Man, is it a battle. And what a blessing. What a blessing to be given such a battle. Chapter 10, of gratitude for the grace of God. Why seekest thou rest when thou art born to labor? And we are born to labor. My wife, she was just telling me this morning, she said, she's very, very worried about the amazing abundance coming, supposedly. She's very worried about robots taking manual jobs. She says, humans were born to work. And we were. We were. Why seekest thou rest when thou art born to labor? Prepare thyself for patience more than for comforts, and for bearing the cross more than for joy. For who among the men of this world would not gladly receive consolation and spiritual joy if he might always have it? For spiritual comforts exceed all the delights of the world and all the pleasures of the flesh. For all worldly delights are either empty or unclean, whilst spiritual delights alone are pleasant and honorable, the offspring of virtue, and poured forth by God into pure minds. But no man can always enjoy these divine comforts at his own will, because the season of temptation ceaseth not for long. Great is the difference between a visitation from above and false liberty of spirit and great confidence in self. God doeth well in giving us the grace of comfort, but man doeth ill in not immediately giving God thanks thereof. And thus the gifts of grace are not able to flow unto us, because we are ungrateful to the author of them, and return them not wholly to the fountain whence they flow. For grace ever becometh the portion of him who is grateful, and that is taken away from the proud, which is wont to be given to the humble. And gratitude to God, it's so important. Changed my life. I still think that and I've shared a lot when I've gone live, especially when I was talking about ivermectin, some of that stuff, not only just how great it is, but also the dangers of overusing it. I talked about how going carnivore and fasting on a certain level from certain foods, and then taking ivermectin, I was able to overcome a bipolar diagnosis. There'll always be people that say, well, you're probably bipolar. And I don't think I was. I don't know what was up, but I know what got me back on an even keel. And the whole journey started with me saying a prayer of gratitude. And I'm Catholic. We have our prayers. We have our exact prayers. And a lot of us, we lean on them a little bit, maybe too much. And this prayer was different. I was just talking straight to God, which is Catholic as well. It's also Catholic just to say whatever you want to God in prayer. But we do have our set prayers that we like. But it was a prayer of gratitude. Even though my life was not in shambles, definitely not in shambles, but just wasn't happy. Things were not going the way I wanted them to. And I said a prayer of just absolute gratitude. And that for me, it was like it opened the door. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I'm still grateful. Grateful to God for his grace, because he saved me. And now I just have to keep walking the right path. And like I said, last night I didn't do it. I screwed up. I screw up at some point, probably every day. But to have found peace, not by hustling, not by being successful, but by trying to, number one, listen to friends that cared about me, that stepped in, listen to them, and just be so grateful for them that I was ready to move forward with a much more honest life. But also just grateful that, was it maybe it was the Holy Spirit itself that said, hey, you should say a prayer of gratitude. You need to thank the big guy, because your life's pretty good. You may think it's bad, you may not be happy, your life's pretty good. And I did, and that got the ball rolling. And so that's advice I give to anyone who's having trouble struggling with prayer. A lot of people struggle with prayer, and then on social media, people will be like, "What do you mean you just talk to God?" Yeah, it's not so easy for some people, and that's interesting too. How many people get so used to praying and then telling themselves that it's all good, and that and they overlook the fact that for others, that conversation with God is so heartfelt and so real. And a lot of times, these people that lose their faith or don't talk to God, I think partly it's out of fear. And I think that they're fearful partly because when they do talk to God, they mean it. And so we can be judgmental of people that choose to be agnostic, and we don't realize that maybe they're just scared because they know that when they talk to God, they mean it. Maybe for a lot of people, it's from a place that's deeper and more serious than so many of us cradle Christians that were brought up just running through motions. Oh, it's easy to pray, You just had to talk to God. Just close your eyes, talk to God. That's all it takes. A lot of Protestants do that. A lot of Protestants do that. I'm not being rude about Protestants, because I think they're right. But it can be easy to say, "Hey, man, all you got to do is talk to God, and that's all it takes. That's it." And they don't realize that maybe they're talking to a really sensitive soul, that if they talk to God, they take God so seriously that they don't want to screw up their conversation with him. And that's beautiful. That's really special. And yet people kind of, I don't want to say they look down on it, because I don't know, but it comes across that way sometimes for believers, for Christians, to be like, all you gotta do is pray. I don't understand why people are agnostic. I don't get it. Well, a lot of agnostics, I think, they take things serious, and they want hard evidence. And I think God has to respect that. I could be wrong. I think God has to respect that. And a lot of times, those are the ones that when they do convert and they become Christian, they are so hardcore. They are so hardcore. And a lot of times, and again, I'm not bragging, I'm not saying, I think a lot of them end up becoming either Catholic or Orthodox, because they do their homework. And if you do your homework and you find out about the history, and you find out about like direct lines of, or the miracles that happen within these certain churches. Again, I'm not here to push Catholicism or Orthodox or any of it. but I'm trying to be as honest as I can. I've thought many times, my mom had a conversation with me when I was like 14, 15. She was like, if you want to leave the church, I was going to a Baptist high school for a year or a semester. Went to a Baptist school, real tiny little thing down in Midland, Texas. And I loved it. And they didn't try to convert me, but they would kind of hint at things that the Catholics don't do right. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not here to fight for the Catholics. It's just I grew up Catholic. But she had this conversation, and I still remember we're sitting in the car driving past like Hastings. I remember where I was sitting. She was like, if you want to leave the Catholic Church, if you want to become Protestant, that is fine with me. And I'm like, no. But I was having hard time. I was in church, I was in mass, and we're all holding hands, and we're reciting, I think, the Lord's Prayer, something along those lines. And one of these things that you get as a Catholic, you can get so used to. You walk through these motions, and my dad is agnostic, or at least somewhat agnostic. I think he's becoming Christian slowly but surely. I don't know. I don't bug him about it. He's a genius. He's a literal genius. And what a blessing to not only get to know a genius, but grow up with a genius in the household. It's a lot of fun. But he's big on like evolution and stuff, and I picked up on that too, and I love it. But he he wants to know. He wants like hard facts. And so I'm in mass one day, and we're holding hands, and we're going through like the chant thing, and I'm like, man, is the Catholic Church a cult? And it was the first time that it ever struck me where I felt like, but I think it was because I wasn't taking the moment serious. Number one, holding hands, touching each other, that was Vatican II. So the Catholic Church didn't used to do these things, and so much of Vatican II was an answer to just how big and strong Protestantism had gotten, and so we tried to make ourselves more Protestant. The priest stopped giving mass facing the altar and the body and blood of Christ, and started facing the congregation, which, you know, there's a lot of people now that wish that we could reverse it and go back. Or holding hands while we pray. We're not big. Catholics didn't do that up until this last century, and so I'm standing there. I'm like, oh, maybe this is a cult. And it wasn't until later when I started reading more and trying to figure it out using reason and logic. And I was like, yeah, I'm Catholic. I don't think I could be anything else. I really don't. But I don't look down on other faiths. I don't try to label them. At least I do my best to not. There's times where you're like, is that a cult? I don't know. I don't know. I think when Christians see any religion that like excommunicates real fast and quick the moment somebody's publicly steps out of line. Lord knows what people do in private, but when someone publicly steps out of line, they're like, "Ah, you're gone." Yeah, we're quick to be like, "Ah, you're a cult." This is about forgiveness, right? We forgive and then we move forward. Um, but yeah, I had a moment. I had a bit of time where I was questioning whether I was Catholic, and my mom was like, "Oh, it's okay if you leave the Catholic faith. I won't, I'll be fine. You're not gonna hurt my feelings." And I think about that a lot. I don't know if that hurt her to say it. And she had been going to a non-denominational women's group, which was really great. and she came out of it and she's like, all you need is Jesus. But then you go deep enough into Catholicism and you kind of find out that Catholics believe that as well. So where was I going with this? I don't know. We all get there though. We all. Oh yeah. Agnostics that find the church. A lot of them do find these churches that have very storied histories. And I think miracles is a big thing too. I think it's another big one for me. Are these miracles where there's multiple witnesses? I grew up with my dad who was all about reason, logic, science, and there's things that science can't account for, and the only way you ignore it is by ignoring it. You know. But like I said, it all comes down to do you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? It's very simple. But you know what? All of us humans are pretty simple creatures. And so God made it, number one, He made it pretty abrupt and uh, got our attention by hanging His Son on the cross. You know, it's something you don't get out of your mind's eye real easily. And then He made it simple. Love that guy for what he did. Love him with all your heart, and He will be there for you. And if there's two or more that pray to Him, He's literally right there. And isn't it something now that science is like, oh, there's a metaverse, multiple universes, and we're all just folded on top of one another. They're right next door. You know, oh, there's dark matter, and there's this, and there's that, and we don't understand anything, by the way. but then you get a bunch of religious people together and say, well, when two or more of us pray, Jesus is there physically. Well, how do you know? The scientists go, how do you know? I don't know. How do you know about dark matter? Oh, it's math. Well, you know, I can also see the math of Western civilization and what was built by there being believers in a church and how grand and peaceful it was for so long. That's math. I don't know. So, am I making any sense at all? Is anybody even watching me? I don't even know if I have a viewer. I'm not going to look. I don't want to know. I desire no consolation which taketh away from me compunction. I love no contemplation which leadeth to pride. For all that is high is not holy, nor is everything that is sweet good. Every desire is not pure, nor is everything that is dear to us pleasing unto God. Willingly do I accept that grace whereby I am made humbler and more wary and more ready to renounce myself. He who is made learned by the gift of grace and taught wisdom by the stroke of the withdrawal thereof will not dare to claim any good thing for himself, but will rather confess that he is poor and needy. Give unto God the thing which is God's, and ascribe to thyself that which is thine. That is, give thanks unto God for His grace, but for thyself alone confess thy fault, and that thy punishment is deserved for thy fault. Don't ever curse God. Don't ever, if you're a believer and things start happening to you, still give thanks. Thank you, Lord. It's like that thing where you get delayed. You can't find your keys suddenly, and you're just mad. You're mad. You're supposed to be at whatever by a certain time, and you can't find your keys. They're gone, and you're like, oh my gosh, why does this happen to me? But you got to remember, what if you don't know? You don't know why it happened. You could have found your keys immediately, gone out and got in a car wreck immediately, you know? And I'm not saying an angel came and took your keys and tossed them somewhere, but the world is mysterious. God works in mysterious ways. And so when you reach stumbling blocks, remember, especially if you ever get the feeling that like things just aren't going your way. Someone I love very much right now, things are not going her way. And just trying to be there for her is not easy. And you can't say these kinds of things to somebody who's not, things aren't going their way. Oh, well, God's just teaching us a lesson, don't do that. Right. But, Kempis is reminding us all things, if you're giving glory to God and you mean it from your heart and you're doing the right things, all of these stressors, all of these barriers, everything that you're coming across that you have to overcome, it's for a reason. And you have to have faith. It all comes down to faith. It all comes down to faith. 100% of it. And you have to have faith that even if it's not about something that you're meant to do here on this earthly plane, he is doing his best to make certain that you get into those gates when that hour comes. Sit thou down always in the lowest room, and thou shalt be given the highest place. For the highest cannot be without the lowest. For the highest saints of God are least in their own sight, and the more glorious they are, so much the lowlier they are in themselves. Full of grace and heavenly glory, they are not desirous of vainglory. Resting on God and strong in his might, they cannot be lifted up in any wise. And they who ascribe unto God all the good which they have received seek not glory one of another, but the glory which cometh from God only. And they desire that God shall be praised in himself and in all his saints above all things. And they are always striving for this very thing. Be thankful, therefore, for the least benefit, and thou shalt be worthy to receive greater. Let the least be unto thee, even as the greatest, and let that which is of little account be unto thee as a special gift. If the majesty of the giver be considered, nothing that is given shall seem small and of no worth. For that is not a small thing which is given by the Most High God. Yea, though he gave punishment and stripes, we ought to be thankful, because he ever doth for our profit whatsoever. He suffereth to come upon us. He who seeketh to retain the favor of God, let him be thankful for the favor which is given, and patient in respect of that which is taken away. Let him pray that it may return. Let him be wary and humble, that he lose it not. Chapter 11. I can do math. Of the fewness of those who love the cross of Jesus. Jesus hath many lovers of his heavenly kingdom, but few bearers of his cross. He hath many seekers of comfort, but few of tribulation. He findeth many companions of his table, but few of his fasting. All desire to rejoice with him. Few are willing to undergo anything for his sake. Many follow Jesus, that they may eat of his loaves, but few that they may drink of the cup of his passion. Many are astonished at his miracles. Few follow after the shame of his cross. Many love Jesus so long as no adversities happen to them. Many praise him and bless him so long as they receive any comforts from him. But if Jesus hide himself and receive any comfort, but if Jesus hide himself and withdraw from them a little while, they fall either into complaining or into great dejection of mind. But they who love Jesus for Jesus' sake, and not for any consolation of their own, bless him in all tribulation and anguish of heart, as in the highest consolation. And if he should never give them consolation, nevertheless, they would always praise him and always give him thanks. Oh, what power hath the pure love of Jesus, unmixed with any gain or love of self? Should not all they be mercenary, who are always seeking consolation? Do they not prove themselves lovers of self more than of Christ, who are always seeking their own gain and advantage? Where shall be found one who is willing to serve God altogether for naught? Rarely is any one found so spiritual as to be stripped of all selfish thoughts. For who shall find a man truly poor in spirit and free of all created things? His value is from afar, yea, from the ends of the earth. A man may give away all his goods, yet that is nothing, and if he do many deeds of penitence, yet that is a small thing, and though he understand all knowledge, yet that is afar off. And if he have great virtue and zealous devotion, yet much is lacking unto him, yea, one thing which is the most necessary to him of all. What is it then? That having given up all things besides, he give up himself and go forth from himself utterly, and retain nothing of self love. And having done all things which he knoweth to be his duty to do, that he feel that he hath done nothing. Let him not reckon that much which might be much esteemed, but let him pronounce himself to be in the truth an unprofitable servant, as the truth himself saith. When ye have done all things that are commanded to you, say, we are unprofitable servants. Then may he be truly poor and naked in spirit, and be able to say with the prophet, as for me, I am poor and needy. Nevertheless, no man is richer than he, no man stronger, no man freer. For he knoweth both how to give up himself and all things, and how to be lowly in his own eyes. How amazing is it that we live in a country where people are willing to give their entire lives over to protecting the nation itself? The fact that we would not have these comforts at all if people weren't willing to give themselves over to the military, or first responders. I was listening to Norm Macdonald stand up, and he gets in an argument with a teacher because he makes the joke that about how we like to say the teachers are the real heroes. But his point is kind of interesting because he says, in his opinion, those aren't the real heroes. The real heroes are the real heroes. And this teacher, she starts fighting with him. And he's like, you know how I know you're not a real hero? And if you're a teacher, don't be offended by this. He says, you know how I know you're not a real hero? Because you're the one telling me you're a real hero. He said, when somebody pulls someone out of a car, what does he say? He says, oh, the teachers are the real heroes. And he says, but let's be honest, the real heroes are the real heroes. And this reminds me of that very much, that idea that if you do the right thing, you got to be humble about being the person that did the right thing. And I'm always struck by people, that went and gave their lives to their country, and you try to get them to talk about it in like a braggadocious way, they won't do it. They refuse. Those are real heroes. And maybe that's part of the reason that our military is so blessed, is because, like I said, we're a nation that was devoted to God. And then we have these men and women, we've been, they get sent around the world. They're the guys that are keeping, there's only one hegemon left on earth. China's trying, but right now we're the guys. And they get sent, they don't know where they're getting sent when they enlist, when they join up. And they give themselves over completely for the greater good. And thank God this country still seems to understand how important they are and how blessed we are to have people that are willing to do that. So yeah. 250 years of men and women that were willing to sacrifice everything to truly carry a cross, like the likes of which I can't understand, so that I could have nice things and talk online and blow V8. And yeah, anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you have an amazing Wednesday.